Hey guys, welcome to the Storybook Pan channel. We left off last time with Ironheart squared off with a mysterious Taoist priest. We learned from our footnote video that Taoists are usually very peaceful, but this guy was definitely not. If you need a quick refresher, check out the previous videos. Otherwise, let's see what happens next. So without further ado, here we go. Sky Fury watched from the side as his blood brother began his assault on the Taoist priest. To the untrained eye, the attacks would have just seemed like a blur of red as the traditional Chinese spear contained a red tassel by the end spike. But to the practitioner who was well versed in Kung Fu, it was obvious that Ironheart was far from a novice with the spear. Each strike was controlled and precise. He seemed to move as one with his weapon. But despite his best efforts, it was clear that the priest had the upper hand. His movements were swift and graceful, and he put on a masterful display of flexibility and agility. Although each thrust of Ironheart's spear was precise and aimed at the priest's chest, the priest was elusive with his footwork, and on one occasion was able to effortlessly bend his back 90 degrees to evade an attack. Hope for victory was beginning to fade for Ironheart, as it seemed as if he were fighting against the element of wind itself. At this point of the engagement, Ironheart began to feel the exhaustion kick in. He had launched nearly every attack at the priest from his repertoire, but not a single strike landed. He knew if he kept on going, he would burn out before the priest would. For him to have any chance of victory, he knew he had to force the priest into a final showdown, one last all-or-nothing, do-or-die scenario. He withdrew his spear and took a couple of steps back. The priest pursued. Ironheart suddenly stopped and torqued his hip 180 degrees back towards the priest and launched the spear towards him with both hands, the signature attack from the Yeung Family Spear form known as Wui Ma Cheng. The priest clamped onto the flat portion of the spear's end spike with both his palms, the tip of the spear a mere inch from his cheek. Ironheart summoned his last ounce of strength to drive the spear forward just a little bit more, but to no prevail, it would not move. He stopped and tried to withdraw the spear instead, but again, it did not move. The priest suddenly struck the spear with his palm, and Ironheart felt a sharp pain shoot up his wrist and immediately dropped the spear onto the ground. "So you do know the Yeung Family Spear after all," said the priest with a smile on his face. "My apologies for the rude behavior earlier. Would you do me the honor of telling me your name?" "It's Ironheart Yeung," he replied as he picked up his spear. "Are you related to General Yeung?" further asked the priest. "Yes, he was my grandfather." Ironheart's grandfather, General Yeung, had led an army of 300 Song Dynasty soldiers to defend against an invasion of 40,000 Jin at the Great Battle of Merchant Bridge. Equipped with a single spear, he and his soldiers killed more than 2,000 of the Jin invaders in battle. Even when struck with arrows, he marched forward and slew the Jin High Commander. He gave his life for his country that day. The legend of the Yeung Family Spear echoed throughout China. The priest covered his fist with his other hand and nodded to Ironheart as a sign of respect. "Please accept my apologies for mistaking you for a traitor, when in fact you are the descendant of one of Song Dynasty's great heroes. And may I ask for this gentleman's name?" "This is my blood brother Sky Fury Kwok," replied Ironheart. "His grandfather was one of the heroes of the marshes of Mount Leung." Again, the priest bowed. "My apologies. I was too quick to arrive at conclusions." "Dojo, it was a misunderstanding. Say no more," Ironheart said. "Please come in and join us for another round of wine." "It would be my pleasure," replied the priest. The three returned to Ironheart's home and sat at the table. "My name is Ep2, the priest announced with his head slightly bowed. The two blood brothers bowed their heads in awe and said, "The great Cheng Chunji of Chun Zhangao, Yao Dojo. It's a great pleasure to meet you." "The pleasure is mine," responded the priest. He pointed to the head on the floor and said, "That is Chancellor Wang. I broke my Taoist obligation to peace and took his head. He was planning to betray the Song Dynasty and plot with the Jin. I chased him down for 10 days before catching him." "What a coincidence. We had just been discussing what we heard about this corrupt chancellor before meeting you," Ironheart said. "Yes, and I was being chased by the government's men before bumping into you two. Because both of you knew Kung Fu in a peaceful farming village, I had assumed you were with the government as well." The three chuckled together at the misunderstanding. "Yao Dojo, please let us fulfill our duties as hosts and stay for a few Ironheart's request was interrupted by the priest suddenly shooting out his palm, signaling silence to the two brothers, and turned to the window. "They've come after me. You two stay here, and no matter what happens, don't leave the house." The priest picked up the head of the Chancellor and ran outside into the snow, and with a single leap disappeared into the branches of a tree many meters above him. The two brothers looked at each other confused. Moments later, they realized that the priest was right, as the faint sound of horses galloping got louder and louder. And that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Leave your questions or comments below and I'll be sure to address them in the near future. And I'll see you next time on Storybook Panda.